Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're running down 10 players your club should have stumped up the cash for in this summer's window. 10. Alex Grimaldo for PSG. By their own standards, Paris Saint-Germain have had a relatively sane transfer window. Echoing the marquee acquisitions of years gone by, the Parisians instead invested in two of the Premier League's best ball winners, Ander Herrera and Idrissa Gueye, as well as Pablo Sarabia and Dortmund's Abdou Diallo at the back. However, while the former BVB man can fill in on the left, Thomas Tuchel still has issues on the flanks, with Juan Bernat and Thomas Meunier his first choice fullbacks. Though rumours of a swoop for Ralph Guerreiro remain widespread, we think Alex Grimaldo of Benfica would be a smart pickup for the French Giants. The Spaniard, who is still just 23, had a bumpy year in 2018-19, scoring 4 and assisting 12 from defence, with his 1.6 key passes outstripping Bernat's 1. He also completed 1.5 dribbles a game, again ahead of his countryman on 0.9, and he made a very healthy 3.5 tackles and interceptions every match, completing 75% of the challenges he attempted in Liga Loss. While other teams might see Grimaldo as a risk, a move to PSG would see him swap one dominant side for another, where his technical skills and creative assets would fit nicely into a possession-heavy style of play. Fullback remains the one position where PSG have never had a long-term world-class player. With Tuchel's guidance, a move for Grimaldo could change that. 9. Youcef Atal for Spurs. While Ajax, Real Madrid and Barcelona all sat at home during last season's Champions League final, one of the teams competing for the trophy ran out a midfield of Harry Winks and Moussa Sissoko. A long and successful campaign left the Spurs squad paper thin by May, and the Lily Whites solved that issue in spectacular style in the off-season, bringing in Ndombele and Lo Celso for what will end up being a combined €115 million. However, they balanced the books by selling Kieran Trippier to Atletico Madrid, and as a result, Pochettino heads into the 19-20 campaign with a new headache. In the final days of the window, Spurs were linked with Nice fullback Youcef Atal, and the Algerian would have been the ideal signing to cap off an excellent window. At 23, he is old enough to contribute immediately, but young enough to improve from an already high baseline. Last year he played in a back 4, back 5 and on the wing, and averaged 5 tackles and interceptions a game, an insane number on a team with 55% possession, the third highest in the league. He was also a brilliant dribbler, completing 4 a game to rank 9th in Europe among all players, meaning he would bring an attacking threat to Spurs' right flank as well as defensive solidity. While Liverpool and Man City look unassailably at the top of the Prem, Spurs have shown themselves to be capable of beating anyone in Europe, and Atal could have been a key component in taking one more step in the Champions League. 8. Memphis Depay to Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid's summer sale saw the Rojiblancos bring in over €310 million, thanks to the enormous fees generated by Griezmann, Rodri and Hernandez. However, despite their resources, at the time of writing, the club's attack is set to rely on João Felix, the 19-year-old from Benfica, who cost Simeone the third highest transfer fee of all time. That's a huge risk, meaning a slow year or an injury to the teenager could leave Atleti fighting Valencia and Sevilla for a Champions League place, and meaning that a proven PK'd forward would also be a sensible acquisition. Lyon's summer was almost as profitable as Atleti's, and with Fekir, Ndombele and Mendy all evacuating the south of France, Memphis Depay must have been open to a move too. The Dutchman, who is now 25, was involved in 20 league goals last season, having produced 32 the year before. The former PSV man can play as a striker, but his shot locations could be better, with under half his attempts coming from inside the box. However, his combination of goal threat and creativity would make him the perfect fit for Simeone post-Griezmann. Across Europe, only James Rodriguez exceeded Depay's 3.7 key passes per match last term, and he's fast enough and skillful enough to do well despite the lack of attacking support in Atleti's system, with around 2 dribbles a game across his career. Atletico also lack a left winger, with Lemar, Correa and Felix all preferring the right, meaning Memphis would complement the club's existing talent. With around €70 million in profit still sitting in a Madrid bank account, the Spanish side would be wise to test Lyon's resolve. 7. Hamed Junior Traore for Lyon. Tanguy Ndombele has a strong claim to being the best Premier League signing of the window, and unsurprisingly left a huge hole at Lyon, despite having spent just 2 years with the club. New coach Silvino has some parts to fill that with, retaining Aouar, Lucas Toussaint and spending €25 million on Lille midfielder Thiago Mendes. However, the Brazilian is 27, and while a competent defender, hardly the all-action zone-moving whirlwind that Ndombele was. So who could Lyon have signed instead? James Junior Traore played over 2,000 minutes for Empoli last year, as the Italian side suffered relegation from Serie A. That move may not sound too impressive, but the Ivorian only turned 19 midway through the season, and was touted for a move to Juventus in the summer before ending up as a Sassuolo, though Juve had the first option. By the stats, Traore looks extremely promising, with 4 tackles and interceptions a game, better than Ndombele's 3.2 in 2018-19. Traore can also dribble, racking up 1.7 take-ons a game, ranking 7th among under-25 midfielders across Europe's top 5 leagues. And while his success rate of 61% is away off the Frenchman's 73, it is already strong and likely to improve as he develops physically. Meanwhile, a couple of long balls and a single key pass per match give an indication that the youngster could grow into a very capable distributor. Having plucked Ndombele out of obscurity, Lyon could have found and polished up another gem if they'd taken a punt on Traore. 6. Pedro Porro for Juventus. One of the most bizarre transfers of the summer saw Juventus collect €65 million from Man City for João Cancelo, or splashing €37 million to bring Danilo to Turin, swapping one of the continent's most exciting fullbacks for a man 3 years older who's repeatedly failed to hold down a place at a top European club. A better option for the old lady would have been Girona's Pedro Porro, who profiled similarly to Cancelo in 2018-19. The Spanish wingback clocked up 4 league assists for the relegated side, actually more than the 3 managed by Cancelo for the Italian champions, and created a chance again for a side which averaged the second least shots in the whole of the Liga. Just 19 years old, you can see why Maurizio Sarri didn't see him as a safe bet, and he isn't as sound defensively as going forward, but he nevertheless remains a far better long-term investment than the error-prone Danilo. Needless to say, City ended up signing Porro themselves before loaning him out to Valladolid. 5. Jean-Philippe Mateta for Aston Villa. Despite the largest net outlay in the Premier League during the off-season, Aston Villa go into the 2019-20 campaign anticipating a fight against the drop. The Villains brought in 12 senior players, but only one was a recognised centre-forward, with 22-year-old Brazilian Wesley arriving for €25 million from Club Brugge. And though wingers Jota and Trezeguet also came through the door, the pair had 12 league goals between them last season in the Championship and Turkish League respectively, leaving significant pressure on Kodja and Davis as backups to Wesley. The 6'3" striker may well prove a good signing, but while Tammy Abraham netted 26 for Villa last season, Wesley got half that tally in Belgium, making him a huge gamble for Dean Smith. So we think the Midlands side would have been better off signing a forward from one of Europe's top leagues, ideally someone with physical presence who specialises in shots in the box. Step forward minds is Jean-Philippe Mateta, a 6'4" man mountain who netted 14 Bundesliga goals in his first year with the club. That total matches up well to Mateta's expected goals, around 0.6 a game, far above Wesley's 0.4, and his record of nearly 3.5 shots per match and 2.7 from inside the area shows a predatory instinct which bodes well at just 22 years old. Though he played in a tougher division than Wesley, Mateta took more shots, scored more goals, created the same number of chances and completed the same number of dribbles, making it no surprise that Monaco and Marseille have made inquiries for him. Valued at around €35 million, he wouldn't have come cheap. But if Aston Villa returned to the Championship in 2020, Wesley would have been even more costly. 4. Paulo Dybala for Liverpool. While Liverpool have faced a fair amount of criticism this summer for their lack of activity in the transfer market, the fact remains that not only are there no obvious areas for improvement in their starting lineup, they are also compensating for spending massively over the previous 18 months, with a net spend of €127 million in 2018-19. Nevertheless, as lethal as the Reds' forward line has been over the past 2 seasons, now felt like the perfect time for Jurgen Klopp to add extra firepower to his front three. Firmino, Mane and Salah all took part in international competitions this summer, with the Brazilian and Senegalese attackers going all the way to the final, and it means all 3 have effectively not had a break from football in over 2 years. Furthermore, with Klopp's side finishing the season as Champions League winners and with 97 Premier League points, Anfield has never been a more popular destination. So we reckon that despite being adverse to moves to Man United and Tottenham, Paulo Dybala may have been swayed by the prospect of a move to the European champions, and he would have made a big difference to their season. With Man City improving at right back and central midfield, another world-class forward would help the Reds keep pace with Guardiola's side and keep Firmino and Salah at peak fitness throughout the campaign. As it stands, the Merseyside club may end the season closer to third than first. 3. Federico Chiesa for Bayern Munich. One of the most talked about potential transfers this summer was Leroy Sané's proposed switch to Bayern Munich. And while a horribly timed ACL injury has put an end to any possibility of the former Schalke winger returning to Germany, there is another super exciting young forward who has seemingly passed the Bavarian club by. Federico Chiesa has been a widely known talent for some time now, and at 21 is threatening to explode at any moment. 2018-19 was the Fiorentina's winger's best season to date, with 6 goals and 3 assists in Serie A, plus another 6 strikes in the Coppa Italia, marking him as La Viola's key attacker. Furthermore, his 4.2 shots a match was the second best return for an attacker under the age of 22 in Europe, with only Inter's Martinez bettering him, and he also averaged 0.5 expected goals per 90, for a side which avoided relegation by 3 points. With Robin and Ribéry leaving and Lewandowski entering his 30s, a winger who can score, create and play across the forward line is exactly what Bayern need, and Chiesa fits that mould perfectly. But it now looks like if he's going anywhere this summer, it will be to Juventus. 2. Andrea Petagna for Eintracht Frankfurt. With the sales of Luka Jovic and Sebastian Haller this summer, Eintracht Frankfurt have effectively lost all their firepower ahead of the 2019-20 season. The pair hit 32 Bundesliga goals between them last campaign, accounting for over half of the Germans' club total output, and that's not even taking into account their combined 14 assists. And while turning a profit of 83 million euros on the two of them is impressive, the fact remains they are now missing one of Europe's most potent strike forces. Manager Adi Hütter clearly needs a proven goalscorer, and so far has failed to even secure one centre forward. A striker like Maxi Gomez or Andrea Belotti would have been ideal, but the former's desire for Champions League football and the latter's price tag would rule them out for a club who finished 7th in the Bundesliga last term, and whose record signing cost them 12 million euros. A more realistic target would be Spal frontman Andrea Petagna. His 16 Serie A goals was the 4th most for a striker under the age of 26 in Europe's top 5 leagues, only beaten by the aforementioned Jovic by 1 strike. And while the big Italian slightly outperformed his expected goals, his tally is nevertheless impressive given he was playing in a side which averaged the 6th lowest shots per game in the Italian top flight. In fact, his 2.5 efforts a match accounted for over 1/5 of the side's output. While arguably not possessing the all-round skill sets of Haller or Jovic, Petagna could still be a handful in the Bundesliga, and now valued at 30 million euros, is probably worth a gamble for a side in desperate need of goals next season. 1. Marcelo Brozovic for Man United. Going into the summer transfer window, Manchester United had 4 key areas to recruit in: right back, centre back, central midfield and right wing. The signings of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire and Daniel James have covered 3 of those 4 options. However, there's still a gaping hole in the centre of the park. With Fellaini leaving for China in January and Ander Herrera exiting on a free at the end of the season, Solskjaer will likely pay for his failure to find replacements, especially when the options he has left at his disposal are not Champions League quality, with the exception of Paul Pogba. In fact, what the Red Devils need most is an upgrade on Nemanja Matic, who did United's shaky backline no favours last season by providing inadequate defensive cover in front of them. And considering the painstaking process which eventually saw Lukaku go to Inter Milan, surely a deal to bring Marcelo Brozovic to Old Trafford could have been agreed. The Croatian international clocked up 3.6 tackles a game last season, the most for a midfielder in Europe's top 5 leagues, and won back possession a total of 5.1 times a match. Compare that to Matic and Fred, who made 2.9 and 2.6 tackles and interceptions per 90 respectively, in a team which averaged significantly less possession than Inter last term, and you see the gulf in class. Add to that 1.7 key passes a game, a metric in which both Matic and Fred failed to reach 1, and you have a player who used correctly could have been the difference between United being favourites to break into the top 4 next season and the likelihood they'll miss out on Champions League qualification once again. So those were our 10 players your club should have signed, but have we missed anyone out? Please let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, why not click on the one on screen right now? And as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.